Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie, and today I'm speaking with Mandy Silverman, aka Mandylicious, who is a challah therapist and coach. Welcome, Mandy. So good to see you.
Good to see you also.
I'm really excited to talk about challah, but before we get there, where did this challah therapist moniker come from? Because I love it, and I feel like it's something that everybody needs, and nobody knows that they need it.
It's true because there's a lot of people who have very aspirational pages of bakeries that are things that you say and you admire them. I'm trying to be more of the people's challah person. So instead of being like the challah empress or the challah magician or the challah queen, I thought we try out challah coach or challah therapist because I spend so much time trying to help people understand their challah or baking situations that they might have and help them feel better about themselves, because challah can really be, it can take a toll on you. Anytime you have a recipe that's different, it can take a toll. So I'm trying to be helpful.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like challah, especially, people put a lot of pressure on challah, right?
Yes. In general, challah is known to be a Jewish traditional bread that people serve at the Sabbath or on Jewish holidays or Jewish ceremonies like a bat mitzvah or a bar mitzvah or a wedding. But it's so traditional that people think that it can only be a certain way. So when you have a bread that's so traditional and you're like trying to emulate like your grandmother's challah, you put a certain level of pressure on yourself, and you think if a challah doesn't look exactly like this one that I saw in the bakery window or this one that I saw at my great aunt's, dinner table, then I have done something wrong. So they stop, and people just don't try to do it anymore, so because they don't know where to look or how to feel good. So I try every day, and I talk to people every day and help them with that.
And so where did your love of challah come from?
I was very scared of challah for a very long time. My mom asked me one time to help her figure out how to stuff a challah, like she had seen one of her friends she went to for lunch. They had a layer of honey in the challah, and I, at that point, tried to make my own challah, which took many iterations and many mistakes. And then eventually it turned into something where I was taking other people's things and stuffing them in challah that weren't honey, because honey was such a challenge for me. So I did like pulled brisket and salami and cookie dough and brownie batter, those like crazy things that maybe you've never seen in a challah before, and using people's own, like their favorite flavors to add to their own special challahs that I would make to them when they would come over or I would go there. And then after that, so that's sort of when I was able to take challah out of like this traditional box and make it for some of my friends, then it became more of a, I came like having challah brain. I would think about challah all the time and different flavors. And that turned it into a home business. And then a year later, after I was doing it for the home, I did it. I started putting on Instagram. I had one of my friend's daughters help me out because I had no idea what I was doing. And I realized that Instagram was not really a place for my home bakery, but a lot of home bakers who had the same trials and tribulations with their challah messaged me, and they had all the like issues that they were having or issues that I had previously. So I was suddenly feeling like I knew what I was doing, and feeling confident about something is wonderful, especially after so many issues and failures of challah that I had. It was great. And then seeing these people being able to succeed because of that was also wonderful. So I loved challah, but now I really have this very close relationship with it because I see how much I can help other people feel good about themselves with it.
So you became the challah therapist you wish you had when you were trying to figure it out.
Exactly. That is 100%. I wish I was there for me, but now
okay. But now you are. And not only are you there for you, but you're there for so many people who just want to get it and they want to get it right. So what is the secret to making good challah?
First of all, you have to have the right mindset where you don't want to make it, you're not trying to make it look like someone else's. You want to make sure that you're doing it because you want to try something out. You want to make something yummy. And if it doesn't look right the first 1 or 2 or 6 times, that's okay. There's no such thing. You're perfect for you. Once you get that, the one of the secrets that I always make sure I tell people to look for is the dough consistency, which you want to think is so important because you think, oh, I've got this recipe. If I follow this recipe to a T, I'll be able to have everything will be right. But with challah and a lot of recipes for challah, it's not an exact science because so many different things play into the amount of flour or water you're going to be adding. So it's just because I'm in Sharon, Massachusetts, and my recipe is calls for 4 1/4 cups of bread flour. I will sometimes I'll use 4 1/4 cups, but sometimes it's like right now it's hot, cloudy, and rainy. I had to add a little bit more flour to mine. I had to look at the dough texture to make sure it was tacky but not sticky, so I call it. So everyone should be doing that in their own kitchen.
And so now let's go down the stuffing the challah road. So how do you incorporate that into the recipe? How does that affect
so
everything else?
It's important because sometimes you want to flavor the dough, right? And if you want to make a flavored dough, you add, like I sometimes make an everything flavored challah dough where I add like a couple tablespoons of everything seasoning to the dough. But when you're doing that, you have to make sure that you're not adding like extra salt because extra salt in the dough will kill your yeast. So you have to make sure that everything seasoning doesn't have salt. Or if I'm making something that has, I'm adding something that has like a sweetener in it, like I'm trying to like maple dough or whatever. If I'm adding maple syrup to the dough, I have to take away some of the regular sugar to make up the difference. To make it too much sugar will also kill your yeast. That's if you're flavoring the dough itself. When you're stuffing the dough, you have certainly a lot more creativity and recipes that you can use. You don't have to worry about salt or sugar content. You want it to be good. You have to worry more about the texture of what's inside it. So anything that's too liquidy won't work because it will make your dough gummy. So if you're using pulled brisket, for example, to stuff your challah, you're going to want to drain all the gravy off of that brisket because it's got to be too liquidy. And the same thing would happen also for like fresh vegetables. If you want to stuff your challah with spinach and onions, you want to cook down that spinach first so all that water releases because you don't want it to be in the challah. The same thing also for things that you want it to work, but it doesn't. Like if you want to stuff it with jelly beans or things like Laffy Taffy, all these things. The gummy things don't work well in challah either. There's many issues there. And then also the two things that are sad for me that don't really work in the way that you want them to in challah would be hummus, because everyone thinks, oh, if I bake the hummus in the challah, or it's going to be all hummus, creamy when you cut it in, like how you dip flour in hummus. It's not. It separates, and also peanut butter is the same exact way that the oils separate from the solids, and it does taste good, but it's not always what people envision. So I suggest using peanut butter chips inside because it's more solid, or you can incorporate peanut butter powder in your challah dough itself instead, and you sub out some with some of the flour and see.
So there's like a workaround basically except for jelly beans and Laffy Taffy, there's like a workaround for anything you want to incorporate into a challah. So do you mix it in like if you were making chocolate chip cookies, or do you fold it in? Or does it depend?
If you're changing the dough, you knead it in. Or if you do like sprinkles for a funfetti dough, you would knead it in. But most of the time when you stuff a challah the way I stuff a challah, it's going to be so you see a slice of it and there's like a huge ribbon, a thick ribbon of filling. To get that thick ribbon of filling, I have lots of examples of it on my Instagram. But what you're doing is you're dividing with 3 strands of a braid, right? You flatten those strands and then you put the filling in the center, and then you close the strand up and over the filling. So you've got 3 sealed braids, 3 sealed strands, which you braid, if that makes sense. But that's how
makes total sense. And so did you figure out the honey in the challah?
I did. The second year I did Mandylicious, I was finally able to figure it out. That's the one recipe though I don't share. Like I send a picture to my mom. I'm like, did I do it? Is this right? She's like, oh my God, yes. And it was very exciting moment for everyone. But I don't share that with people because it's not my recipe and it's not my idea. So if she wants to, it's very obviously very important to her to keep that recipe private. So if she wants to share it for herself, she can, but that's not going to be the thing I do. And besides, I think like told buffalo chicken tastes much better in a challah than honey. So I've moved on. I'm over it now.
And I love that you can make savory challahs as well as sweet ones and it makes sense that you could, right? Because there's the traditional raisin challah, which now sounds really boring compared to everything else you're talking about. And then the straight up, just wonderful, delicious, regular, I guess we would call it challah. So what is a really easy recipe for a starter stuffed challah?
The easiest one would be either like an Oreo, like a cookies and cream challah, or a chocolate chip challah. Those are the best ways to start because you don't have to worry about it being a fruit where you would have, even an apple, which isn't a very juicy type of fruit, you still have to pat that dry. Anything that's like a lot of oil or gravy is also harder to incorporate because you really do have to make sure that it's been drained properly. So when I tell people to start, I say start with like a cookies and cream or start with like a chocolate chip because those are both very approachable.
Okay. And would you share one of those recipes so we can put it in the recap?
Of course, absolutely.
Wonderful. So a lot of people have like really strong connections to food, but it feels like the challah connection is one of the strongest ones. Why do you think that is?
Because no matter what level of Judaism people practice, and there's so many levels and there's so many different beliefs, and people who aren't even Jewish but want to learn about it, it's people know about it. It's not like a prayer like that you would only go if you ever went to services. It's also not something that can ever be associated with something like this boring or something that you didn't enjoy. It's usually you have challah at a celebration, at a wonderful time, at a family meal, at your wedding. So it's always got these very positive memories, I think, associated with it. So when you start thinking about challah, then you're like, oh, you're like brought back to a happy place. Or you remember, if it's not your challah recipe or even your grandmother's, you can sometimes, challah is so all over the place, so pervasive that you've heard it from your mother talking about it or from one of your friends who's Jewish. You're like, oh my God, I remember, Cynthia said that her aunt made the best challah ever. Then it's people, and then you see it on social media and in places like this where like French toast, right? The best French toast is challah French toast. So even if you've not heard of challah before, people who have, they're like, what is challah bread? And then you want to learn more about it. It's a lot of people think that they can't do anything with it if they're not Jewish or if they're not using it on the Sabbath. But that's not true. It's just a bread and it's delicious. And I think everyone has the right to make it their own special way, as long you can give tribute to Judaism because this was our thing. But then you can do your thing with it too.
Well, you just said a challah French toast, which is like one of my favorite ever things.
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like you're eating warmth and love, right?
Exactly.
Is there something you know now about baking or baking challah that you wish you knew when you started on this challah journey?
Well, besides all the tips and tricks that I pulled along the way with, okay, yes, the consistency immunity is very important. And, try learning all about yeast was very important. But also just giving yourself a break, because for so long, and I was mad at myself if my braids weren't a certain way. Now I know enough things to help make my braids be perfect. Not perfect, but like even. But it's okay that you don't, I get messages from people and they send me pictures of their challah. And to me, I'm like, that's amazing. How did you get straight? Like, no, Mandy, it failed because it looks stretched here or there. I'm like, no, I think that people need to stop trying to be the person that they see, or even like in a bakery, that we're doing it the best we can. I know if you buy a dress that you see on a model, you're going to put it on. You're like, you want to feel good because you like the dress, but you still can't expect to look in the mirror unless you're that model and look exactly like her. So if you see a challah somewhere, it's not necessarily going to be the same coming out of your house, but it's going to be delicious because it's yours.
Well, and it goes back to what you said earlier, which is the first step is to have the right challah mindset, that you're creating something out of love to enjoy or for loved ones to enjoy. And it sounds like that's like the most important part.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been so much fun. Where can people learn more about you and get a challah therapy from you?
I tell people to check out my Instagram because that has all the good stuff right on there. At Mandylicious Challah. You should start typing in Mandy, and it should come up soon. But that's where you can find a link to my website where you can sign up for getting to learn when I have classes, if you're local, if you want to, when I'm baking challah, and even if I post a new recipe on Instagram, I have a little email list that I send out so people won't miss it because sometimes it gets lost in the feed. But and then on my Instagram itself has a lot of recipes and tips and tricks right there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your challah story and your love of challah. And thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcast to get recipes and read the articles that go with each episodes. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. I feel like I need to go bake a challah. I feel like really inspired. So thank you so much, Mandylicious. And thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, bon appetit.